Houston Cougars, a furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
Here is Zion Chris, big hole, open sesame. Zion Chris, wow, the 72-yard house call.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to the Scott Holm Podcast. Candidly, about a month or so ago, when the Cougar men's basketball season ended, Bobby and I kind of talked between each other here. Like, hey, man, I know we got some off-season football content. We'll probably have some off-season hoops content, but had a little bit of a worry about, would we have enough to talk about from the world of Houston Cougar sports in season and out of season? And I think this is one of the biggest notes documents I've done for an episode, Bobby. So our fears of Houston Cougar sports not producing newsworthy, exciting stuff to talk about were unfounded. A lot of stuff. You're coming to us live from DFW, where it's apparently tornadoing and hailing and raining at the same time. You might get swept up at any point that we're doing this show. So appreciate you powering through that. How are we doing, friend, otherwise?
Good, man. Actually, the weather ended up not being as bad as they thought. There was I love weather. Like, that sounds really weird and nerdy, but I love tracking it and stuff and watching people on Twitter who know more about it than I do. And apparently there was some kind of heat dome bubble thing that the weather, it was coming in, they were saying softball size hail, at which point there's nowhere I can put my car that's going to keep it safe from softball size hail. So you're just kind of well, shit, here goes nothing. Well, ended up this heat dome, it kind of broke it up a little bit. We got a ton of rain, but it looks like it wasn't as bad as as they may have thought. And I can respect the weathermen, because they'll always be this is the worst case scenario, and then it's not as bad, and everyone's they lied to us, and it's
you don't understand probability.
Yeah, and here's the thing: they're predicting the sky. The fact that they're even kind of close.
And those same people will be mad if they were yeah, things are probably fine, and it's well, why didn't you predict this hail that destroyed my car and part of my house?
Exactly. It's you're predicting the sky. It's insane that we even are able to kind of do it. But yeah, I think we're supposed to get hit by a second wind here in a second, but it is what it is. If I disappear, sorry, bud.
Yeah, if you disappear,
you got this, right?
I have an idea of what happened there. I will give you this. It pains me to say something even a little bit complimentary of DFW, but that Shaq meme where he's I apologize, I wasn't familiar with your game. The crazy weather stuff y'all deal with up there, man, wasn't familiar with. Even living in Texas for over 30 years of my life, wasn't familiar other than oh yeah, it gets cold up there sometimes. It is wild. You're kind of in Tornado Alley. You're getting
we're on the very south side of Tornado Alley.
Yeah.
I mean, there was one today in Mineral Wells, not too far from where.
That's an hour from you, or at least within an hour from you, right?
Yeah,
it's wild. All right, we'll shift from the weather talk to the Cougar talk. We'll mention, which I was derelict in doing last episode, if you want to support the work that Bobby and I do, talking about the Cougs, mostly not talking about the weather, go to patreon.com/SHPAWDcast. Now that we have a pretty firm idea of what the coming season's men's basketball roster is going to look like, premium episode coming there for you, the lovely people that support our show. You want to access premium content, you just want to support the work that we do as an independent Houston Cougar podcast, putting out weekly content year-round about everything in the Cougar athletic department. Please, 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 for as little as $5 a month, patreon.com/SHpodcast. We're going to kick off tonight, continuing our spring football series, talking a new topic around this Houston Cougar football team here in the spring portion of the offseason. Of course, with the NFL draft happening last weekend, we'll also talk Cougar football alums starting their various pro careers, either through the draft or the various undrafted free agent type processes. But this week's topic is one that interested me because as fans, as guys who talk into mics about the Houston Cougar football team, we tend to focus, and I don't think focusing correctly, on the returning stars or the star high school recruits, the star transfer recruits. But inevitably, you have impact players come from a different group of guys, and that's the group of returning players who were either some level of backup, maybe a spot starter, but somebody you probably aren't thinking about, somebody who didn't start the majority of last year's games. I mean, use one example from last year. Jalen Garner, your top tackling linebacker, breaks out after being a backup most of his college career prior to 2025. Not as big of a role player, but DJ Butler ended up being by a pretty good margin your number 2 running back last year behind Dean Connors after playing a total of 89 snaps as a freshman 2 seasons ago. So just 2 examples here, but I think you and the listeners, Bobby, probably get the gist of what I'm going for here. This is not the two of us predicting that these players are going to be first team all Big 12 selections, one of the best we've ever seen, that kind of thing. Just positive difference makers who would be playing a noticeably bigger role on the 26 team than they did when they were on this roster last season. I wanted an interesting question that the two of us could think on, give our answers here, and maybe get to stake some future I was right currency among each other with that pick. And also, I don't do this enough, but if you're listening and you think you have a player that meets that criterion that the two of us are overlooking, you have a different pick, please add us on any of our social media platforms, slide into the DMs if you want more personal touch, or message us on Patreon if you're one of the wonderful people that supports our show, shpodcast@gmail.com. I think I've covered all the usual places like you do so capably. Bobby, have I established the criteria here well enough? And whenever you're ready, tell me who your breakout guy is going to be for the 2026 Cougar football team.
Well, I really hope that you establish the criteria. I hope that you accept my answer, and my answer is Carmicah Glass. He had
why would I not accept that? I mean, first off, yeah, of course, yeah, no, good pick.
I know, I figured you would,
Yeah.
but yeah, Carmicah Glass. He had one start last year, but he did play in every game. So he was, like you said, a spot starter. He only started that one game, but to me, he really fit kind of the definition of this. A guy who made some impact last year, kind of fell off late in the season, but in a couple of his games, you just saw a lot of 5-6 tackle games midway through the season that I thought he looked really good in. But, I feel like if the staff didn't really like him or want him on this roster, he could have got playing time somewhere else, right? He definitely, he came from Ooh La La, if I recall. I don't know why I didn't write that down, but he came from Ooh La La, I believe, I saw earlier. And the kind of guy who, if he suddenly wasn't going to get playing time here, could probably go start at a program, like a nice Conference USA level, something like that. I'm sure a UNT staff would love him, or somewhere along those lines. So I really do believe that the staff did like him and wanted to see a little bit more from him. Like I said, guy who had flashes last year. You brought in some linebackers in the transfer portal this year, but I wouldn't say you brought in some oh man, we need guys who can absolutely start this year. We brought in some guys who I think we're going to kind of put some flyers out there on and take a little bit of a risk, knowing that you have a guy like Carmicah Glass kind of coming in. You saw the portal, the staff go really hard in the portal on D linemen, because you were replacing a lot of starters there who had a lot of production you needed to replace. And you saw some guys come in on the transfer portal on the D line that you were like, oh man, you really, really need to shore this up. You didn't really see that with the linebackers. And so it, to me, tells me that the staff is kind of comfortable with what they had available at the linebacker position. And so, yeah, that's why Carmicah Glass is a guy that heading into the fall is somebody who I'll kind of be watching lots of times last year, where I was just kind of impressed with what he did. His name popped up every so often while you were watching a game. It wasn't it to me really felt like the definition of this, like a guy who wasn't like, oh my God, he's so good, but there were multiple times throughout the year where you were like, oh, Carmicah Glass got another tackle there. Oh, he forced a fumble. Like, he just kind of really fit that for me, kind of going through the roster, looking at guys who played last year. This is a much harder thing to think about with the transfer portal being what it is, because you kind of look and you go, I think this guy's going to make an impact. And you're like, yeah, but they brought in 3 guys in the portal who might start over him, and he's only a junior, maybe. So, the linebackers, like I said, the fact they didn't go super deep with the linebackers in the portal. Yes, you brought in some guys, like I said, but really gives me faith that they are seeing what they had at linebacker. And I think a big returner is going to be Carmicah Glass.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I actually gave Glass some thought for this pick as well. I'm glad I didn't, just for the sake of us having
Right.
multiple different guys here. But no, I feel like almost to a T, he kind of fits the definition of what I was looking for there. My initial pick where I was like, yeah, I think of this guy. Then I came off it because I was just like, he started more games than he didn't last year. This was not my pick, but I'll say Kobe Young, who played a decent amount last year as a redshirt freshman. And he only caught 12 passes, which is why I sort of talked myself into it. But I was like, I feel like starting more games than not. I just thought kind of stretched the definition a little bit. So I thought about it for a while, went a bit more adventurous in my pick than Kobe Young. I'm taking D lineman Quindario Lee. And if you don't remember that it is, the listeners don't remember that it is, honestly, I don't blame you, because I got his name from going through the football roster a couple times, kind of refamiliarizing myself with the two part of the two deep, as it were, like guys who have, been rotation guys in the past, aren't starters, but are still here. But to remind y'all, Lee was part of the first transfer class that Willie Fritz and his staff brought in here prior to the 2024 season. He played all 12 games of that season, got just under 200 snaps on defense, largely spelling Carlos Allen along the interior of the defensive line. In all likelihood of last year, he would have been a rotation guy, but ended up suffering a season-ending injury, I believe, prior to that season. Didn't play, got a medical red shirt, so he's back as a senior for the season to come. I believe he's a fifth-year guy, might be a sixth year. I didn't admittedly dig enough to find that, but at the very least, a guy on his last year of eligibility. And kind of like I said when I introduced the topic, I'm not expecting Lee to become an all Big 12 postseason selection level of guy when it's all said and done. But the fact that he got the medical red shirt and the additional year of eligibility and didn't enter the transfer portal like a number of other guys from last season's roster who were leaving, clearly looking for a bigger role elsewhere, even if it meant dropping down a level or two in some cases, that tells me that Lee has a not insignificant role to play for the Cougs in 2026. Yes, you had some portal activity. You have veteran guys coming in, Demarion Thomas and Ejiro Egbara, who will also, I think, play a good number of snaps in the interior. You have Khalil Afau coming back after playing a bunch last season, but you're going to need multiple guys there. Like you want to have a rotation that you're comfortable with. I think Lee's going to go back to what he did in 2024 plus some. And with the departure of Carlos Allen, you can't just put one guy in his place. It's going to be, or need to be, a team effort from your returning guys and the new guys, Quindario Lee, Thomas, Egbara, all of them, to fill those big shoes. Again, not an all-conference guy per se, not the best D lineman in the team in all likelihood, but the fact that Lee didn't leave when I'm sure he could have found another or probably multiple D1 FBS programs that are willing to have him on the roster and probably with a clear path to a bigger role tells me he's going to be a part of stuff here. And that's why he was my pick for a breakout returner who didn't have a big role previously with the Cougars.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer there as well. I kind of pointed out the defensive lineman portal kind of going hard, but I think you're right. Carlos Allen isn't the kind of guy that you replace with one guy. You replace him in the aggregate, as a famous general manager once said, who was played by Brad Pitt. Apparently, you kind of replace him in the aggregate there. So I think that's a really good pick.
Yeah, again, it's a position you're going to want to rotate. It's a position you're going to want to have. Obviously, two defensive line spots, but you ideally like to have 3 or 4 guys. And as much as I liked the 2 transfers I name checked, Ashton Porter, even though I think he plays a slightly different position on the D line than Lee specifically, you're going to have a lot of guys there. But if you want this defense to be roughly at the level of it was last year, maybe even a little better than it was last year, ideally, that's what you're always hoping for as a fan. You're going to need big contributions. And I'm staking my claim here that Quindario Lee is going to be one of those guys. But like I said earlier, not just say it to say it, like I like the Carmichael Glass pick a lot. The Carmichael Glass pick almost seems to be like the definition of the kind of guy we're looking for here in this prompt. And yeah, kind of interesting. We both landed on defense too. Not that there weren't potential offensive guys there too, but I think with offense, I mean, you got a lot of like either established starters, Amari Thomas, Connor Wigman,
Exactly,
or like star transfer, Shadre Hurst on the offensive line, Mekhi Hughes, running back. Like no one's overlooking Mekhi Hughes here. Like it's not
right.
Yeah,
but he just didn't fit. Yeah. And like you said, you're returning a lot of talent on the offensive side. Like you're going to have stud receivers everywhere. Your quarterback's not going anywhere. O-line, you're really depending on, transfers and things like that. And it's kind of hard to say like, oh, an offensive lineman's going to be the breakout star of the offense. Like that's just kind of hard to extrapolate through. So I think it makes sense that we would both go defense there.
Yeah, I mean, all those guys are either returning starters that don't meet the definition in that way, or again, transfers who we looked at the signing, we're like, yeah, like this guy is coming here to start. Like no one's really no one's really expecting any different from those.
Exactly.
While we're on the subject of football, we also had the NFL draft last Thursday through Sunday. I didn't watch all of it or anything close to it, but I did actually catch more of it live than I have in the last several years, just by having it on along with the NBA playoffs in the background while I cooked dinner at home Thursday and Friday nights. Low end of Cougar activity in the draft for what we've seen since we started following it on this pod, but unsurprisingly, Tanner Koziol did hear his name called in the draft. He went on Saturday, day 3, to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 5th round with the 164th overall pick. And this is where I reveal a deep, dark secret that Bobby knows, specifically that last summer after breaking up with a longtime significant other who we'll say was a sports skeptical person, but absolutely despised the NFL. So I kind of knew, I was like, all right, if I'm going to pick my spots with sports, it's going to be like college. It's going to be the Cougars. Like I'm not going to cause any angst over a league that I just hadn't even been following that closely, even in the years immediately prior to getting that relationship. But I figured I'd at least give the league a more serious look that I had in a decade plus, and not ever really having an NFL team of long-term serious allegiance. I would put the 14 to 15 NFL teams that I wouldn't hate the idea of rooting for in a spreadsheet. Cowboys and Patriots definitely not in that spreadsheet, and various other teams that I just didn't want to in any situation be rooting for. Assigned each of them a random number between 1 and whatever the max was, I think 14, and then had a random number generator pick the team, and I would at least follow that team as my time allowed on my Sundays over last fall. And that random number generator picked the Jacksonville Jaguars, which Bobby can confirm. I told him after it happened. Ended up being a pretty good season for the Jags by recent standards. In general, the 25 NFL season actually ended up being a pretty entertaining one, ironically outside of the actual Super Bowl, which is to say, while I would never call myself a Jags diehard, I watched most every game they played last season and can say with some knowledge that they have a very good offensive mind and head coach at Liam Cohen. He's also their offensive play caller, and they very much involved the tight ends in their offense, chief among them Brenton Strange, who was pretty dynamic when healthy last season for the Jags. They also went pretty tight end heavy in this draft. In addition to Koziol, they drafted Nate Borkacher in the 2nd round, who had a reputation as an elite blocking tight end with not as much pass catching ability in his college career. And then in the 5th took Koziol, who caught a ton of passes, both in his one season at U of H, previously at Ball State, but we can admit here amongst friends, probably wasn't the best blocker. Wasn't as much his forte as it was catching passes. And so I'm happy that Koziol, not just that he gets to go to the Jags, a team that I actually follow some, but I can speak of some knowledge and confidence that he's going to a team with an offensive staff that if he works his way into being on the field, which is no small feat going from college to the NFL, that he has a staff that can figure out creative ways to utilize him and his high-end pass catching ability. He's not going to go to some staff where they're going to try to square peg and a round hole him as a more traditional tight end. He's going to be with a staff that knows this guy's an elite pass catcher. Bobby, I've talked a lot here. What are your thoughts on where Koziol ended up, other than a little bit of not loving that he's with a division rival of your beloved Texans?
Yeah, I think it's a good fit. Like you said, they do a great job of utilizing their tight ends. I think the biggest problem is they drafted a tight end with their first pick, and where does that put Tanner Koziol, especially for a staff that likes to use their tight ends, and they already have some that they clearly liked last year with how much they used them. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully he's more than just a camp body. I don't think you use, when you're limited on picks like the Jags were, I don't think you really use that as a camp body. And, I don't know, even if he doesn't make a roster, he really kind of feels like a guy who can make a career playing professional football. We'll just go with that. Maybe not at the NFL level, but even if he's in the XFL or UFL, whatever they're calling it now, in Canada somewhere. I think those will be great options for him on a practice squad somewhere like that. So I think he's got a shot at making the roster, but even if not, if he can show out in preseason, that'll be really good for him.
Yeah, I think he'll be with the team this year. Does he make the 53 man? I think that's a fair question for the exact reasons you said, that because they do have a bit of a logjam at the position, but the fact that they used a pick before like the 7th round tells me they at least want to give him a look this year. They at least, I don't think it's gonna be a situation where he gets cut out of fall camp or anything like that. Does he stick in the NFL? I mean, it's a fair question. It's not at all a certainty for guys drafted in his specific position to stick there, but like the spot, obviously a lot of work he's going to have to do to get there and to get being someone who's regular in the field for a team that went to the playoffs last year. We also had a number of undrafted free agent deals from Cougar alums. Carlos Allen ended up with his hometown Atlanta Falcons, Dean Connors and Eddie Walls to the LA Rams, Latrell McCutcheon Sr. to the Tennessee Titans, and Zelmar Vetter to the Chiefs. Obviously love Carlos Allen getting a shot to play for his hometown team. And I think if his U of H career tells you anything, is that Allen can come in and overperform expectations at a higher level of football. He certainly did in 2 seasons here. I'm also really intrigued by Zelmar Vetter because he's a big cornerback who didn't look outmatched at all in taking a big jump from FCS football to playing in the Big 12 his last season. And in my opinion, if this was a situation where he had one more year of college eligibility, I think he would have been a big time breakout player on this season's team and would have made himself draftable. So it's not an easy path going from undrafted free agent to making the roster. Like, at least gets you in fall camp, but it's not an untrodden one. And I could absolutely see one of that group of guys, Allen, Connors, Walls, McCutcheon, and Vetter, making a roster at some point, even though it's not an easy thing to do. Also, since the draft, Mekhi Muse, Ethan Sanchez, Mark Stampley II, and Dalton Merriman got minicamp invites to various NFL teams, which is an even less clear path to getting to fall camp and anything close to an NFL roster spot, much less clear than what Kozial or any of the undrafted free agent guys just talked about have. But at least an opportunity to work in from an NFL team, which not many football players get in the grand scheme of things. And it's one of those, it's a league. If your talent's evident, even if you're a minicamp guy, you're going to get there. I mean, out of that group, Sanchez to me is intriguing because he had such a strong final season. He showed a really good leg. Maybe he has to go play in the UFL or Canada somewhere first, but wouldn't shock me at all if he ends up kicking an NFL game at some point in the future when it's all said and done.
Yeah, step one is getting into a camp, even if you are just a camp invite and you don't get a signing bonus or anything like that. Like, that's step one. You go out there, you make a couple of plays. Next thing you know, you are on a practice squad. At practice, you start doing that. Injuries happen. You find yourself on an NFL roster, man. That's all you can ask for, is that you are, if you're an undrafted guy, that you are headed to a camp and you got a shot. You're at least, even if you're the first round of cuts, you were on the field, you put some tape out there. And again, you look at a UFL, XFL, whatever it is, Canadian tape, something like that. And you can, you're getting paid to play football. And for a lot of guys, that's something that you dream of. So it's kind of like when you see college basketball guys who end up going over to Europe, and Rob Gray did that for years. He played basketball in Monaco. There's worse ways to live than playing football in Vancouver in front of in the CFL.
Yeah, I would say also it's not a perfect comp, but the mini camp thing, it's like summer league almost for the NBA. Like, yeah, your path, unless you're one of the draft picks playing there to get some seasoning for your team, like chances are you're a bit of a long shot to be playing NBA basketball, but you still get to put on an NBA jersey and play for guys like on an NBA coaching staff, like the minicamp guys. You still get a chance to put on an NFL team's jersey and practice them and like put your talent out there in front of NFL coaches. Like, no small thing there.
When you're at that point, like, you just need to get tape out there against guys who have some NFL talent.
No doubt. So we'll lead our spring sports talk tonight with one team that just wrapped a strong performance at their Big 12 championship and another one currently in the middle of playing theirs, which we will discuss, as we always do, in this latest edition of Cougar Golf Corner.
Sam, I need to cop to a bit of a mistake that I made last week. I looked at my dates and I missed. I didn't line things up properly. And I did not preview the Big 12 men's golf tournament. So let me cop to that. I messed up. But the men are currently, as Sam said, in the middle of their Big 12 tournament. It's probably for the best that we didn't preview this. Right now, the men are not in first. They are in what is called DFL, Sam. They are in DFL out in
Dead furry last.
Yes, out in Kansas right now. The Cougs are dead last in the Big 12 tournament. Hudson Weibel was top 10. Now he is top 20. He ended up 5 over today. Just a rough tournament all around for the Cougs, man. Can't do much about it now. You're just not on the same level as some of the other teams. You don't have the funding or facilities of like the number 5 team in the country, Oklahoma State. You have number 6 Texas Tech. You have number 10 Arizona State that have these. And like, I hate to say that U of H doesn't have this legacy of golf, because it definitely does, but it just doesn't have the recent history of a golf program like Arizona State does, like Texas Tech does, like Oklahoma State does. Arizona's number 20, BYU's number 23. Like, it's really sad to see kind of what has happened, but you should be better than DFL though. So yeah, I don't have much analysis here. No one's playing well. Your best player is, like I said, Hudson, who is 20th right now. The next closest is going to be Swan Yi Chin, who is 14 over. You're just not playing good golf right now, and you're not going to the tournament. This is probably where we see the season end for the Cougs. Maybe something crazy could happen and you go to the tournament. Not likely. Almost definitely not going to happen there. What were you going to say, bud?
I was going to ask, would you have expected this? Like, if you were previewing this last week, what would you have predicted, knowing where the Cougs are ranked, knowing where the other teams in the conference are ranked?
Yeah, kind of looking at it, the Cougs, there's 2, 3, 9 ranked teams in the top 100. Actually, all 9 are ranked top 50. The Cougs are ranked in the 60s somewhere, so maybe I didn't expect us to do DFL. And being 37 over, you don't expect that, right? It's not that I'm shocked that we're last, because like that can happen in golf, right? I'm shocked how bad we look, if that makes sense. Like, there's a difference if you were in last and you were at like 21 over, where Arizona State currently is. Like, you kind of chalk that up to just like some bad golf, and it happens. Like Arizona State's ranked 10th in the country and they're 12th in the Big 12 right now in the tournament. Like, that can kind of happen. But you're 2 strokes off of 15th. You are 5 strokes off of 14th place. Like, you're not even close, right? If you're somewhere in here at like 15, 16 over, like, I'm okay with that. It happens, right? But to be this bad, at one point you were DFL and Hudson Weibel was top 10. Like, you weren't even close. You know what I mean? So I didn't expect us to be up here with Oklahoma State or Arizona. Like, you would like to see somewhere in the top 10, maybe top 11. 16th is pretty bad, man.
Yeah. Wish I had some kind of counterpoint to that, but I mean, last is last. Yeah. Like, you're never happy about it regardless of the sport here. And
like I've said in the past, like, the facilities are a problem when you compare to some of the other facilities. You also don't need an indoor facility quite like Oklahoma State does, but like Arizona State's facility is something stupid, right? Here's the problem I have is the men's golf team and the women's golf team doesn't have the history that the men's team does, right? So you look at Arizona State and how they bring Phil Mickelson in to really, especially pre-live and that kind of stuff. You see how they embrace their guys. Oklahoma State, right? They had Ricky dressing in all orange when he first came out, and it became like his signature thing. And like it's just there's been no embrace of the past. And we talked about this. Was it last week? Maybe the week before. There's been no like. How do you not have anything with Freddie Couples or in any of the history of golfers that you have had come through this program? Like, how do you not have a Fred Couples tournament, right? Where you bring him out and you see what it costs, and like, how do you not embrace him, right? Things like maybe because you've gone so long without embracing him, like there's a little bit of like friction, maybe. I don't, and so he doesn't want to come out. You've pissed him off to a level that, but like you have Nance who loves this athletic program. Try to tie him in somewhere. Maybe you get him in there, right? We have the Jim Nance leadership, like figure something out to get the past fuzzies out. Like there are guys who came through this program that like maybe don't resonate with 17-year-olds now, but like Jim Nance resonates with 17-year-olds now who play golf, right? Freddie Couples, you can get in there with dads. There's got to be something.
Yeah, nothing else. You get Fred Couples in there. You get you boost the program's not name recognition. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. You make the program more visible to a larger fan base, which I think should always be your goal if you're not a football or men's basketball team, because you're always going to be fighting for attention and always going to be maybe a little bit secondary in the attention of those two big front porch kind of programs.
Like you look at Fred Couples, right? And if you're a golfer, especially one obsessed with equipment like me, one of his big sponsors is Bridgestone. They make some of the best golf balls in the world. How do you not have something tied in with them, right? Like you see Ricky Fowler, right? When he was big, Cobra. You saw a lot of Oklahoma State guys using Cobra product and wearing the orange and rocking Puma or things like that. Like there's just none of that. I'm not saying that maybe the Bridgestone golf balls aren't the best golf balls for the team and they want to use Pro V ones. Okay, but like there's got to be something you can do. Work with Fred Couples to create a Bridgestone golf ball that golfers can buy that has a red B on it and has Couples next to it. You know, just there's got to be something you can work on to use the history of this program.
I mean, it involves thinking creatively, and if we know anything about U of H, is people have a lot of excuses why they don't do that, but precious little actually doing it.
Yeah. So let's move to a more happy note.
Yeah,
I guess you could say.
I'm glad you got the eating the vegetables and talking about the lesser of the two, because the other part of Golf Corner is not to spoil your thing. Very exciting. Like,
yeah, you know what's funny though, Sam, is this is somehow a little more disappointing because of how close you were. You know what I mean? You're disappointed, but it's only because of what could have been. The Lady Cougs actually finished second in the Big 12 tournament, which is their best finish in the Big 12 ever. They won the American, so it's not like perfect, but in the preview last week, I said you got a lot of top teams here that can all finish pretty close. They were pretty jammed, and I wouldn't have been surprised to see the Cougs finish anywhere from like 2nd to 10th. And Sam, they finished second, like I said. After 2 days, finishing top 3 and having a medalist finish felt like a given. Even after round 1, you were kind of like, it's going to take a pretty big collapse here to not finish top 3. After day 1, the Cougs legged the field. Then you had that second round, and we've talked about that in the past on Golf Corner about how the second round has been a little bit of a bugaboo for the Cougs this year. And the Cougs performed well in the second round as well. Heading into the final round, the Cougs led by 4 strokes over UCF, who was in second, and they were 6 strokes ahead of Iowa State. Then day 3 happened, and round 3 happened, and Iowa State came out firing. And their top 4, Sam, I want you to think about this. Their top 4 players were 7 under through 3 holes. So if you combine their scores, they were 7 under through 3. For reference, the Cougs were even, and UCF was 4 over on those holes. There's nothing you could do about that, man. Like, you played it better than pretty much anyone else except for one school. Arizona State played it at 5 over those 3 holes. It was just insane. But you were watching on ESPN Plus, and I was out at the course. The Cougs kept it interesting, man. Even though Iowa State came out hot and jumped out to a lead quick, like before it was a whole 5, you were like, "Oh man, what just happened?" But the Cougs kept it interesting. They were making some birdies. You had a lot of really back and forth. I was sitting there with you or texting you, and I was like, "Cougs pick one up here," and then just it just kind of happened. You coming up 17, Malin Kim double bogey 17, a par 3. I think she put one in the water. I wasn't watching. I was on 18, watching everybody come in. And you kind of just you saw that score get posted, and it went from like 2 strokes to 4. Malin probably pressing a little bit there. Can't really blame her for doing that. If you gotta make magic at some point. You're starting to run out of holes, and Malin Kim just kind of puts it in the water, and the Cougs end up in second place by 4 strokes, and still a great performance from the Cougs there. You have 3 players finish in the top 12, make the all-tournament team. You had Malin Kim, who finished 3rd in the tournament. You had Natalie St. Germain, who actually was injured in that last round, come in and finish in 5th place. She was leading the tournament through 2 days, ended up with an injury and struggled to finish the 18 on Saturday. Came out, played really well despite that. And then you had Melissa Viniscold, or as the announcer at the Big 12, just Maya, he saw the last name. It was like, I got nothing, guys. I got nothing, which was crazy because there were a lot of names that he should have flustered, and he like nailed them. But he saw Melissa Viniscold, and just you ever see somebody like it reminded me of when you get to like in elementary school, when you start counting like the paragraphs ahead of you, like you're counting how many people still were to read, and you went to like your paragraph and you start looking, you're like, oh, there's some words in here that I don't like. There's some words that, oh, I'm about to embarrass myself in 4th grade, buddy. Right? Like you saw him get to the name and he was like, Maya, that's too many consonants. That's too many consonants. But she finished in 10th place. You actually had, you also had Alexis Aldana finish really well at 4 over. She finished top 20 in 19th. You had Amelia Viestro finish 11 over. Her score didn't count for you. Great experience for her to come out. Looked good the first day. Just kind of caught up to her. But yeah, overall, you got to be excited. It really disappointing. You could see it on the team's face. You could see how disappointed they were to watch Iowa State because it was so close. But overall, great performance. And we're going to see where the Cougs end up Wednesday. As you're listening to this, we might already know. If you don't, it'll be today when you're listening to this that we find out which regional the Cougs head to.
Yeah, I just wanted to add here. I watched. They had day 3 of the tournament on ESPN Plus, and I watched. I think almost the entire. I might have turned it off when Iowa State was up like 5 strokes on the last like hole or 2 in the last groups, but they did a really good job. Like I don't think a golf tournament is necessarily the easiest thing to broadcast. It's no knock on the sport, but you know what I mean? Like it's a very spread out situation. You've got all these different groups, and I thought they did a good job kind of keeping updated like the score. Like, hey, by the way, like Iowa State now has this lead, or U of H, the birdie here took U of H's score to here. As someone who knows and understands golf, but other than like the Masters, parts of the Masters, really, I don't watch a ton of golf. Like I thought the broadcast was really good. They knew the teams very well, and it was good. You kind of like you went from like roving groups. Like I think they did a good job giving you a fair amount of the groups that had like the UCF and ISU and U of H players who were actually like part of the teams competing at the top. But you had little breaks from that. You don't watch the entirety of that. They had a camera on the final hole at 18, so they'd cut to like, hey, this group's finishing at 18, and you saw all their shots there. I never felt like you were away too long from the groups of the teams that were actually deciding this thing. I thought the broadcasters were reasonably knowledgeable about all the teams. And you know this because I was texting you my reactions while you were on the course there following along on Saturday. But Malin Kim hit like a 25 foot putt for birdie on 16. I legitimately, got on my seat to like, yeah, on the fist pump, like after she hit things. Again, not a golf expert here, but like I knew like, hey, if she hits this, like this is a hard ass putt. And like I've been watching it, and clearly like anything over like 10 feet, like it was clearly challenging. That's not a knock on the golfers. It was just, I think it's a course. It's a challenging course. Like, of course, that championship event should be, and she nailed that putt. And you already told me, like, oh, she's having a monster final round.
I just want to say,
she had like 4 or 5 birdies in the back 9, right?
Yeah,
on Saturday?
If you watch the women's golf like content on Instagram, the girl doing it this year, incredible content this year. Her video editing, I actually need to talk to Coach about that. It has been spectacular this year. Whoever's doing it, killing it. Probably, and I'm not saying this because I'm a big fan of Coach and all of that kind of stuff. Like, some of the best U of H social media content we've seen this year, just in my opinion. You see Maylin Kim, and like, she's so fun and bubbly. She's a short little girl or woman, and she just a very bubbly personality. Buddy, I saw her on like hole 11, and stone cold killer. Zero reaction. You could see it in her eyes. It's so rare to be that close to watching a Division I athlete get into that zone. You know what I mean? Like, to just lock in and just that killer mentality. And you just saw, and had she not, and again, I didn't see what happened on 17, but I would bet all of my money that she knew she needed to make a play. And sometimes you dive for a ball in basketball and you don't get it, and it goes out on you, and you end up losing the game. But I like you taking the 3 there. You know what I mean? Like, go for the pin, you put it in the water. What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, you're chasing a multi-stroke deficit at that point. You got to take some chances.
3 holes left. You gotta take the risk there.
So you were there for, I think, at least part of Thursday. You were there for all of Saturday. I'm curious. Obviously, you're not able to see every hole and every shot, but from your recollection, what was the best shot that you saw while you were out there?
I would say there's a couple. So you had a bunch of really good approach shots that were really close to the pin and just absolute nails. I think one of the first shots I saw a U of H player make on Thursday was one of the most impressive things I've seen. Alexis Aldana flies the green a little bit. It's a par 3, wind's blowing in, and every Cougar, not every, Moa hit the green, but just about every Cougar probably clubbed up a bit too much, because the wind was blowing in pretty hard. So you take a little bit more club, and maybe it was a 1.5 club wind and you played it to 2, and everyone seemed to go long and get up and down decently. But Alexis Aldana was in jail from behind the green, short-sighted, chip running away from her, sticks it to about a foot, makes the putt. She hit that, and I think I even texted you and I said, I don't think I can explain how tough this shot that Alexa just hit was, but it was insane. So that's probably the one that I thought was the best. And so, like I said, we have selection show Wednesday, 3 o'clock. I want to say 3 o'clock Central. The Cougs could go to one of 6 venues. So they already decide which venues are going to get the regionals, just because it makes sense. Golf courses need to prep for it. You can't just tell members of private country clubs if it's going to happen there. Like U of H plays at the Golf Club of Houston. You can't just shut the Golf Club of Houston down for a week. Like, you got to give some advance notice. And so places put into bid. You can go to one of 6 venues. You can go University of Michigan course in Ann Arbor, the UNC Findlay course in Chapel Hill, Hampton Cove, which is a Robert Jones golf trail at Hampton Cove, which is in Alabama, Stanford, I don't need to tell you where that one is, Seminole Legacy Golf Club, which is in Tallahassee, and then you have Ridgewood Country Club in Waco, Texas. I selfishly will be hoping that we get Ridgewood, but I know it would kind of be cool for Coach Lasperia to head back to Tallahassee and have her team on that course, just as like a little personal thing. Not that anyone's told me or anything like that, but I would imagine that's kind of cool. So you have one of those six venues that you could possibly play in.
Nice. Excited to talk some postseason golf with you at some point here in the near future.
Yes, sir.
So we'll dip back into the offseason sports here real quick, talk some quick Cougar men's basketball news. Since we last recorded, we have another name to add to the 26-27 roster. Big man Djafar Silimana, who played at Utah Prep this most recent season, will be enrolling for the coming season as a freshman, expected to redshirt coming season. Wasn't a guy who had a ton of D1 offers, which not surprising for a high school recruit that you're picking up this late in the cycle at this point. But if any coaching staff here, past or present, has earned the ability to have, the fans say, yeah, get why they signed him. You just get the benefit of the doubt, all of that. It's Kelvin Sampson, this staff. So probably a guy we won't see in the court much for 2 or 3 more years. It's fair to say, Bobby, but also kind of the level of prospect we expected to see come in here late on.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. Sampson even said that with a couple of these, he wants to, we were kind of seeing some rumors that a developmental big was kind of on the docket here, and surprise, surprise, we see a developmental big here. So maybe probably not a guy who's going to see much this year. I think they've even said he's going to redshirt if I recall. So yeah, I think a guy who with the new expanded rosters that we talked about last episode, guy who you can kind of give a scholarship to and say, hey, sit here, learn a little bit, but you fit everything that we're looking for. You're just not quite ready to help us win a national title this year.
Also, while we're doing quick men's basketball news, since we last recorded, we also found out where 2 more of the outgoing players from the program are going. Cedric Lott will be playing his likely final season at the University of Nevada, Reno, and Jacob McFarland will be playing at the University of Pacific. I like Reno as a destination for Big Ced. It's been a couple years since the Wolfpack made the tournament, but they're generally among the better Mountain West programs, and they'll really have a much better chance of winning the league now that league power San Diego State and Utah State, also Boise, who's generally better, are leaving that conference for the new Pac-12. Their head coach and staff, Steve Alford, their head coach, has done a really good job developing big men over the last several years as well. Nick Davidson ended up doing well enough that he was able to transfer up to Clemson for this most recent season. A few years ago, they had a big man, Will Baker, who did well enough to make the jump to LSU for his final college season as well. And I also really like the Pacific situation for McFarland. UFP is coming off their best overall finishing Ken Palm since 2010. They finished 110th in the country, which might not seem like much, but for University of Pacific in the current era is quite good. They have a really interesting head coach in Dave Smart, he's probably the most decorated Canadian basketball head coach in our lifetimes, Bobby. He spent a year on Grant McCaslin's staff at Tech, kind of getting the lay of the land of the American game. And after 2 seasons of Pacific, he really seems to have them pointed in the right direction, like the situation instead of stepping into at UNR. Their league, the West Coast Conference, is also going to be a lot more wide open. Gonzaga is leaving to join the new Pac-12. St. Mary's just lost their long time program legend head coach Randy Bennett to Arizona State. So I think fair to say interesting situations for both guys, and we certainly wish them the best of luck in whatever is next in their college careers.
Yeah, definitely no ill will or anything like that. Should be places that you hope to see them succeed a little bit.
No doubt. So we'll head next back to the spring sports for what is certainly our most eventful in a while edition of Cougar Tennis Corner. Obviously wish that this had been earlier in our run tonight due to this team making the postseason, but unfortunately yesterday, Monday, we got the 64-team NCAA women's tennis tournament bracket revealed, and the Cougs were not among the teams selected. It hurts, especially as the Cougs had head-to-head wins this season over 3 teams that were in the field, Utah and BYU in conference play, and then in non-conference play, Southland champs SFA. And the team was ranked for the majority of the season, not to mention you went 8-5. You were in the 7th seed of the conference tournament in a really good tennis conference. I think acknowledging that if you're a bubble team in any sport, there's always something more you can do, And there are things I'm frustrated about. Trust me, I will get to why I'm specifically frustrated about when it comes to UofH's selection, or I guess non-selection. And maybe the start there is that late in the regular season, UofH was dropped pretty heavily in the last couple ITA rankings, despite coming off 3-4-0 wins over K-State, West Virginia, and Cincy. And again, none of those teams were that good. Certainly none of those teams were good enough to give you any kind of massive boost to your ranking, but you would have thought, based on where U of H dropped, that you would have lost a match or you almost lost one of these not very good teams instead of beating 3 opponents as decisively as you could have possibly beat them. I mean, in the last rankings they put out before the tournament, U of H was behind Oklahoma State, a team that forfeited nearly the entirety of the month of April. And their reasons behind it were understandable, but it's kind of a slap in the face to a team that multiple games above 500 in conference and actually played all their games in April to have dropped them below a team that, for all intents and purposes, wasn't able to play their schedule after March. I don't care what they did beforehand. That's not a team that should have been ranked at that point. But okay, like, understand why this happened, but Oklahoma State being 45, and U of H largely didn't get in my opinion, because of where you were in the ITA rankings. But for the teams in the conference that got in over U of H, really the only one that sticks in my craw is BYU, because yes, maybe the Cougs of the U had a slightly better best non-conference win in beating Denver, but they also lost like number 55 San Diego, who's like a solid non-power conference program, but you would think of this as an at-large level team, you wouldn't be losing 6-1 to the University of San Diego. And the Cougs, as I mentioned earlier, also had a non-conference win over an eventual tournament team. BYU beat Denver, who was a 26 tournament team. U of H beat SFA, who was a 26 tournament team. BYU was 1 game worse than you in conference play. They also got 1 free win via an OSU forfeit, like U of H did. I mean, they have a stronger road win than any of the ones that U of H managed by beating Baylor and Waco, but Baylor wasn't even on U of H's schedule, so it's not like you could have even played that thing to prove that comparison. I don't know. It feels almost like a geographic pick or a pick of a team that has more recent tennis history, or just, quite honestly, the same thing Dustin and I were complaining about 5-ish years ago when soccer didn't get picked. It was like that 5 years ago. They just looked at RPI and they're like, well, fuck the fact that Houston was second in one of probably the best at that time non-power conference soccer league. That RPI has them at 49 or whatever we were at. Not good enough. In this case, it's just like they didn't look at U of H being 8-5 in a very good conference. They didn't look at a good overall record. They just looked at, number 45 in the ITA. We'll put BYU's ahead of them. We'll put them in instead. And that's it. They didn't give it any additional thought. I will say, to what I said earlier, your missed opportunities, the trio of 4-3 losses in conference play, that's probably what hurts the most. And that was Arizona, Tech, and Kansas, especially the Kansas one, because you went into that singles portion with a 1-0 lead. I think you win any of those 3, you're probably in the field of 68-4 when it's all said and done. But again, unfortunately, you lost all 3 by about the tightest margin possible. And it hurts. I really want to see players like Sophie Schouten, Chems Doha-Zagluli, and Lisa Morisova all playing their last college season to get the reward of representing this program in the NCAAs, because I believe just as much as I did in previous weeks that this is an NCAA postseason level team. And on one hand, I didn't take it as a given 3-ish months ago at the start of the season that we'd even be talking about a team close to the NCAA tournament, because I mean, you'd won 1 Big 12 match total in 2 seasons prior to the last one. But it never feels good to be one of the first teams on the outside looking in to the postseason. Still a historic season, one to be very proud of if you're a Cougar fan. 8 Big 12 wins after going 1-25 combined in conference play the previous 2 seasons. That's cool. 8 road wins, including your first ever against a Big 12 opponent after not winning any road matches at all the previous 2 full seasons. That's cool. Your highest ranking in over a decade, the best start to a season since like 1990. And seeing players like Sophie and Valeria Krohotina develop into some of the best in this conference on their respective courts. The on-court success, the way the team carries themselves off-court, you've seen it going to multiple Cougar tennis matches, Bobby. This is an incredibly easy team to root for, especially taking into account the difficulty of what they were trying to build here in Houston. I mean, the reason I was so locked in on this team in the last 2 seasons isn't just that I'm someone who's spent a decent part of his life following tennis, playing tennis and other racket sports. That's a peripheral part of it. But what excited me was that when U of H hired Kat Adamovic, to me, it was exciting regardless of the sport, because it was the U of H athletic department hiring an obvious rising star in the profession who believed they could turn this historic doormat into one of the better programs in a much tougher conference. That's a tall order. And that's the kind of thing that excites me the most as a U of H fan, when coaches and student athletes come in here and say, not in these exact words, but essentially, we don't care what the recent history says. We're here to build something. We believe we could do it here. That makes me want to run through a fucking wall, man. And I hate that this group didn't get the roar of the NCAAs, but it also doesn't make me one iota less proud of anyone involved here. Players, coaches, everyone. They had a damn good season.
Yeah, it was really exciting to kind of follow and watch and go to those events. You mentioned that I've been out to a couple. This team was just easy to root for. You saw a lot of people who were proud to be Cougars and proud of what they had accomplished this year. So was really hoping we got to see them. I think you and I had kind of prematurely planned to maybe go visit a regional this upcoming weekend, but unfortunately, doesn't seem like that was in the cards for us.
Yeah, I really wish I had spent yesterday scrambling to find the cheapest flight to Orlando or Austin or wherever to see this team play, because I really just wanted one more chance to watch a really special group represent the Cougars.
Yeah, would have been cool, man.
I had a section typed up before today about projected returners and stuff, which alluded to it. Big news here. And that section kind of now goes in the metaphorical trash bin, because it was announced this morning that Kat Adamovic would be leaving U of H to take the head coaching job at her alma mater, Oklahoma State. Adamovic played at OSU from 2014 to 17, was an All-American for the Cowgirls, was the 2016 NCAA championship MVP, where she led OSU to being the national runners-up, still the program's best postseason finish. U of H had some bad luck here. OSU's longtime head coach, Chris Young, someone I didn't expect to ever leave that job, because in college tennis, that's not really a job you leave. It's that good. It's that level of job. But last summer, he was dismissed for recruiting violations. OSU had an interim step down during the fall for personal reasons, and they had to go into the season with the men's top assistant coach as the interim, and they had an injury crisis. Referenced it when they forfeited April. They had 3 of their 9 players suffer long-term injuries, either at or before the start of the season. 3 of the remaining 6 athletes got hurt during the season. Kind of a disaster year where school was going to obviously bring in an external candidate, and frankly, there was no better external candidate than the recent program alumna who has done notably well at 2 different college head coaching jobs. It's the drawback of hiring a young rising head coach. They'll win and improve your program, but programs with bigger budgets will notice. And in this case, unfortunately, it wasn't just a program with a bigger budget. It was a program with a bigger budget where your head coach also has deep ties. This is one of the situations. This is not me saying any inside info that I know here, that there was nothing U of H could have done here to make Kat not want to take the OSU job. It's somewhere deeply important to her. And again, one of the best 10 or 15 tennis college head coaching jobs out there. It's a very haves and have not sport. And OSU is definitely a have among the group. They have a very nice facility. They hosted the NCAA championships in 2024. That's the level of facility they have there in Stillwater. And this doesn't mean you hire your next coach hoping they stick around. We've seen as U of H fans, that's the ultimate mistake to make. You hire the best you hire the best coach who will take this job, period, end of. And I know you're with me on that one, Bobby. And you can expect it'll be a new roster, or almost entirely new roster next season. That's just the nature of coaching changes. These are pretty small rosters, and we benefited from that when Adamovic got here from Grand Canyon. And I'm sure the projected returning players here, Valeria, Eva, Pechia, they'll kill it at OSU. Wish they were killing it here, but it is what it is, man. There is nothing you could have done U of H wise to prevent this from happening. I mean, the job is better now just for the structural improvements Kat got done here. The courts now have play site streams, which is basically a must for any D1 tennis program, but apparently not a must for U of H before Kat arrived. You have newly resurfaced red courts at the tennis facility, much improved from what you had when she arrived. And I think in the most general sense, any candidate can now see it's not impossible to win here. It's also not easy. I think Kat had this program punching way, way, way above its weight among programs like Tech, Baylor, Arizona, and BYU, who have much nicer facilities, much more recent history in the sport. But at least candidates can see it's not a hopeless situation where you look at it and you think, oh man, they've won like 2 Big 12 matches in 3 seasons. Why should I take that job? Why don't I just like stay in my current situation or wait it out for a better job? That's not going to be the situation at U of H here, which I guess is good news, but there's very little good news when you lose a coach Kat's level. She's an absolute star in this profession.
Yeah, and here's the thing for anybody who's upset about this and thought oh, I can't believe she would go. She just wanted to leave and was so quick to leave. Buddy, if I was a coach in a sport and U of H opened up, I'm going. I'm going to U of H. I want to win at U of H. I want to win where I am an alum, especially if I was at a lower tier school in that sport and I was offered a top 20 job. U of H was a top 20 job and I was offered it. Yeah, buddy, I'm going. In fact, I'm probably more inclined to go to leave my job to go to U of H for less prestige, a worse program or something like that. So like for anyone who's like mad at coach for leaving, or I can't believe she would leave, or she's just leaving, like I guess I would feel a little bit different if she left us for like, TCU, which I know is the better program and has better facilities and things like that. But
You'll
like,
feel different, yeah.
yeah, she's going to where she's an alum. Like, have fun, man. That is the dream, to get hired if at a program that you graduated from, that you participated in, and you have a chance to follow your predecessor or follow your coach and become a legend where you were an alum. Anyone who says they wouldn't take that job is insane.
Yeah, or lying. And you're just honestly, it's a fan base and a school that supports tennis better than U of H.
Yep.
Like she's not gonna have to fight for resources there. Like when she asks for something, not saying you get the football treatment necessarily. Like you're still a non-football men's basketball program here, but OSU sports a lot better. I mean, you could just look at the interactions on the post since then. OSU fans who aren't necessarily like tennis diehards are really excited about it. People who probably followed the program when she was an All-American program legend kind of player. It would be like one of the legendary men's basketball players from like 7-8 years ago who got into coaching, coming back here and taking over Stamps. I know it's not an exact parallel to what U of H is going to do here with Kellen being the
Right.
successor, but you know what I mean there. It's not just that like, oh, this person.
Yeah, like Fabian White comes back.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Fabian
like,
White or Galen Robinson or someone gets into coaching, is super successful at a smaller level, takes a job at U of H. And U of H, like OSU in tennis, one of the best 10 or 15 men's basketball jobs. Yeah, just not. It hurts, but it hurts less because there's nothing U of H could have done to keep her from going back to her alma mater there.
Exactly. That's kind of my thoughts when I saw it. It was like, I think I sent you the text like, oh man, and then you were like, yeah, went to OSU, and I was like, yeah, because you and I candidly had talked about this.
Yep.
What was it, 3 weeks ago? Probably. I was like, dude, do you think there's any chance she goes? And you were like, maybe she's mad at the program for getting rid of the coach how they did, and I was like, yeah, if she's not terribly upset by that, she's gone. And you were like,
Oh, yeah.
pretty much. So like, yeah, you understand it.
Yeah, I would have told you if they have offered the job, like she's gone. And frankly, I wouldn't begrudge her that one bit. I don't have a long list of candidates to replace her. In the most general sense, I want someone with head coaching experience, ideally someone who's been at a place where they had to win on tighter resources, which I guess in some way describes the majority of college tennis programs these days. But one candidate I will name check, I've mentioned her to you, Tarleton head coach Eliane Douglas-Miron, a younger head coach. She was an all Pac-12 player at University of Washington from 2012 to 16. Started her career as an assistant on the Tarleton staff, got promoted to head coach prior to the COVID season, which was Tarleton's last in D2. She was the WAC coach of the year in 2022, had a winning record her first year transitioning up to Division One. She was the first Tarleton coach in any sport since they joined Division One to earn WAC Coach of the Year honors. And had they been postseason eligible in that 2022 season where she was Coach of the Year, would have been the 1 seed and had the inside track to be in the NCAA tournament. That season, the 2 years that Kat was at Grand Canyon, 23 and 24, they lost in the WAC title game to that GCU team. Then this spring, they finally kicked down the door as the WAC's 1 seed, and they beat UTA and Abilene Christian to win the conference, punch ticket to the NCAA as they're actually playing UT Austin on Friday in the opening match of that regional. And this was just Tarleton's 4th conference title in any sport since moving up to Division One. Didn't know this before I started it, but looked in the roster, because if you hire her, you expect at least some of the roster to follow her. Her top 2 court players at Tarleton were a sophomore and a freshman. That freshman really stood out to me too. Aya Ishii, she was 18 and 3 on courts 1 and 2 as a freshman. To me, that only makes it a stronger hire. Not the only good candidate out there by any stretch, but this isn't an easy job, and you have someone in state who has built basically a D1 program from scratch. In my opinion, you could do a lot worse. Bobby, have I sold you between our texts and this little summary?
Yeah, definitely. And really, buddy, you could have told me anybody, and I'd have been like, yeah, that sounds good. But yeah, as somebody who maybe you would like to get the person, somebody who maybe didn't lose the cat, you go from but like overall,
GCU was like Liberty in the Conference USA. Like they are way, way, way bigger resource wise than all the teams in their conference. At least they were in the WAC.
Yeah, and if you can have success at Tarleton, there's no reason to believe that you can't have success. And you look at the roster, I kind of went through very international, just like you've seen, and you see that a lot in college tennis. But when you have that international, U of H is a great place to recruit internationally too. Kat actually talked about that when we had her on, of how nice it was to be able to recruit to Houston and be like, look, if you want to go home for winter break, you have an international airport here. If you get a little homesick, we can go get you some food that's, made by a grandmother who's from that place. Like, just it's a very international city. And so if you can have that success recruiting to Tarleton internationally, I'm sure you can recruit internationally to U of H as well.
Yeah, you could sell international tennis players on Stephenville, Texas, like she consistently did. I think Houston will be an easier sell there.
Exactly.
So we'll stick with the spring sports here. It's been a bit since we talked Cougar track and field on here, and we had some big meets, some notable performances. So we're going to check back in with what everyone involved in H-Town Speed City has been up to. In total, the team has participated in a number of meets since we last talked track and field on here. I believe immediately at that point after the Texas relays. Last weekend, the team actually split between 3 meets. You had the historic Penn relays up in Philly, the Michael Johnson Invitational hosted by Baylor and Waco, and then Rice's J. Fred Duckett Twilight Invitational in town. You also had in previous weeks, U of H participating in its own Tom Tellez Alumni Invitational, the Wake Forest Invitational, the Mount Sac relays in California, and I believe immediately after the Texas relays, A&M's 44 Farms Invitational. So here's what I think are some of the best performances, Bobby, from this period since we last talked about Cougar track and field in no chronological order, if you allow me.
Let's go, buddy. I got my list too, so I'll cross off as you go.
I'll do a few, so I don't take all of your notable ones.
No, you're good. You're good.
We'll mention Louis Inchliff running the 100-meter dash, I believe for the first time since he's returned to the program. Ran a 10.16 second time in prelims at the Penn relays before finishing third with a somewhat slower time. I believe it was pretty rainy too on the Saturday finals. Currently, only the 33rd fastest time in the country, but I expect we'll see some faster times from Louis here as we get close to the conference championships. I wanted to also mention, I believe one of the best freshman performances we've seen this season, men or women, this past weekend. I believe the Michael Johnson Invitational, Shiana Hall, a freshman, had a best jump of 43 feet, 7 inches in the triple jump. This program has a ton of history in the jumps, but I think it's been at least 3 or 4 years since we had a real standout performer in either of the main jump events here. So excited to talk about that. Also, the Michael Johnson Invitational, Anthony Trucks ran was currently tied for the 22nd fastest time in the country. Oh, I didn't mention too, Hall's performance is the 12th best in the country this outdoor season. But Trucks, like I said, ran the 22nd fastest time in the country in the 110 hurdles, an event that we've talked about a lot from the program over recent and not so recent past. That's exciting. Going to the field side here a little, one of the standout performances from that Tom Tellez Alumni Invitational was from sophomore Evina Maria Panagiotou, who had a best clearance of 13 feet, 10 and a half inches of the pole vault, currently tied for the 32nd best performance in the country. Also at that Invitational, throw squad standout Cleo Ajapong had a best throw of 54 feet, 4 inches in the shot put. That currently gives her tied for the 23rd best performance in the country. Bobby, give me your top performances.
Yeah, the big one that I wanted to make sure we got out there was Kanan Worry, who had he won the discus at the Michael Johnson Invitational. Kind of a cool thing there was he recorded the mark of 52.08 meters on his first attempt, which get it done. Go out there, throw, and get that done. Kind of a funny thing. I don't know if you've ever been to his page. I love reading the bios and stuff. Just kind of real quick. Do you know what his dream job is?
Hit me.
Waterfowl hunting guide. And I love that. I love that that is a thing. Just really, really cool there. Winning the discus, big move there for Canyon Wari. Just one I really wanted to shout out there. Zdena Hauf finished second place in the hammer throw. These are big point getters and things that can help you win the Big 12 championships and qualify for national championships. I love the field events. We talk about H-Town Speed City a lot, but little things like that will always get me excited.
Yeah, I mentioned one more field performance this is a bit back now, is at the 44 Farms Invitational, but Andrea Mita, the high jump extraordinaire, he had currently was tied for the 15th best performance in the country in the men's high jump, cleared 7 feet 1 inches in College Station. And I want to shout out a couple freshmen as well, maybe ones to watch more for the long term than the immediate point scoring, but Sean Ai Gobo ran 10.21 second time in the 100 at the 44 Farms Invitational, currently tied for the 49th fastest time in the country. Maybe more notably, he has currently tied for the 30th fastest time in the country in the 200, ran a 20.54 second time, also the 44 Farms Invitational. Not up in the elite national rankings level just yet, but definitely notable that it's coming from a freshman, and certainly this guy's a young sprinter to watch in the long term. Wanted to also mention this one isn't a top 50 national performance one, but very notable. Freshman distance standout Zach Miller broke the U of H program record, broke a record from the 1988 season, Bobby.
Crazy, man.
In the 1500 meters, fellow distance runner, sophomore Patrick Flowers also currently has the 79th fastest time in the 3000 steeplechase, an event we haven't talked about much since Brian Barraza was here. It was one of the best in the country at that event. I mean, my big picture thought is that it's exciting to see the volume of different events that you and I have talked about and where the Cougs have had stand-up performers. I mean, right now, as we sit, only the men's 4x1 relay is where the Cougs have a truly elite performance so far this outdoor season, the one back at the Texas Relays that we talked about previously. But there are a number of events where I don't have a hard time talking myself into next week's meet or this coming week's meet, plus the Big 12 outdoor meet, producing some more stand performances, producing some season best performances, and placing high as a team in a conference track and field meet. Kind of like you alluded to, it's really a team game. You really need to be good at a number of different events. Sure, you should be elite at some, but you need to have a broad level of, I guess, standout athletes. And I think there are plenty of good candidates from the ones that you and I have talked about here tonight.
Yeah, you have the final event coming up, or that was the final event before you head to Big 12 championship. So excited to see what not only the field events can do, but what the sprinters do, and how you can just slowly start to add some points. And maybe you don't have to depend on just your sprints to get you a medal on and get on the podium in the Big 12 championships.
So you got one more regular season meet this week, actually
Sorry.
starting tomorrow. The Cameron Burrell Invitational moved for weather to, I think, tomorrow and Thursday will be on campus at the Carl Lewis International Complex, with Big 12 Outdoors coming here in a little over 2 weeks.
Yeah, super excited for that. And this is always just kind of a cool event. Glad to see the Burrell name on it after everything. So not to bring down the mood there, but kind of a good event. Something that I look forward to every spring is seeing this event pop up and remembering Cam and everything he meant to U of H. But then also this tends to bring in some really good athletes, and it's a great final test before the Big 12 championships.
Yeah, a chance to start really getting to your best performance levels. Last topics tonight are, not surprisingly, the Cougar Bat and Ball Sports, which went 0-6 combined in their 2-weekend Big 12 series. Bobby, you were out in Fort Worth at the TCU baseball finale this weekend, which I will let you talk about at some point later, as long as you feel like talking about it. I'll keep it short and sweet for my thoughts. You lost all 3 games at TCU and were really only competitive in the Saturday game, where the Cougs did have a 2-1 lead late, and you did get one of Paul Schmitz's better starts to the mound this season, but TCU put up a 3 spot in the bottom of the 8th, and that was all she wrote. As much as we picked on the pitching staff, this was another Big 12 series where your lineup, which at times this year has looked quite good, just completely disappeared. In the one close game all weekend, Saturday, all the offense you could really manage was a pair of Cade Clemmy solo homers for 25 innings total this weekend, because Sunday was shortened by run rule. Your team only managed 7 runs. Let's try to do a nicer way to end that, but yeah, you only managed 7 runs in 25 innings. Nothing I can say that I haven't already said. The team's absolutely shown the ability to beat high-end opponents in one-off early season or midweek games, but that 4-17 Big 12 record, I think, kind of tells you that conference competition has certainly found this team out. Tell me about your afternoon at the park in Fort Worth on Sunday, Bobby.
We've done a lot of looking at this team via box scores and going, man, it's not good, right? And then we'll watch the occasional game on ESPN or something like that. I hesitate to use a certain word that begins with a Q and ends with wit. But man, it certainly felt like it. It's just, there's certain things that this team does that can't be explained by a box score. And I've seen it multiple times this year. And I was at a game that they won. But this game, it's astonishing how bad it can be at doing the fundamentals. First inning, right? Trey Broussard gets on base, hits a single, first leadoff hit, and you're thinking, okay, pretty good. Made all the contact with it, snuck through past second base. Okay, that's fine, good. Steals second, it gets reviewed, he's safe, perfect. So now you have a runner on second, no outs. Batter comes up, hits an absolute rope out to right field. A rope. Right fielder for TCU reaches over. It's at the warning track basically. Reaches over, makes the catch. Great play. Trey Broussard is too far off of the bag to tag up. That they teach you that when you're 10. Ball's in the air, you're on second base, ball out to right field. Maybe, and like at that point he's thinking, hey, if it gets down, I can score from here, because it looked like it was going to get down. TCU made a great play there. Get on the bag. I'd rather have first and third with no outs than a runner on second with 1 out. Because if it gets down, you're guaranteed, and you're Trey Broussard, like, you're probably going to score there. If you're on second and it gets down, you're probably getting in. Instead, he's not able to tag up. Who does that fall on? Is that Trey Broussard, or is that the third base coach? So next batter comes up, hits a weak pop fly to right field, right? Kind of midway between infield and a fairly standard pop fly. It had a little bit of pop on it. Trey Broussard standing on second, waiting on the ball to get caught. What? So then he stands on second. He fakes like he's gonna go. Now you have you have a runner on second, 2 outs. Like, what are you? You've done nothing. You had 2 fly balls. Your batters did what you want them to do. Hit the ball to the right side of the field. Move that guy over. But because the third base coach or Trey Broussard aren't thinking, this happens. Okay. It happens. You gave up 14 runs that game. Did that wouldn't really matter? Okay, maybe not. Okay, maybe not. So now it's later in the game. It's a 2-0 game. Let me also remind you, you gave up a leadoff home run when the wind was pushing in to their leadoff batter who had 0 home runs on the year. He's now got 1. Okay. Then a couple of innings later, you have a runner on second again. You're doing great. You're going, okay, it's like 2-0, maybe 1-0. I can't remember. You get picked off a second. And you're probably thinking, Bobby, that happens. Sometimes you get picked off second. The pitcher turns around, gets you. They backdoor you a little bit. No, Sam, you'd be incorrect. You got picked off by the catcher, Sam. The catcher was able to throw it 120 feet before you could recover 15. What are you doing?
It's been bad and that's not just a this year thing. We've been bad running the bases for 6-7 years now in a row.
Like, what are you doing? It takes a lot for me to leave a U of H sporting event early. It takes a lot, Sam. Like, I can count on one hand how many times I've left a U of H game early. In fact, I could probably do it with 3 fingers.
Did you stay? If this is one you did, I'm not trying to say, did you stay the entirety of TCU just destroying us the season before Huey's last season?
Yes. Yes, I stayed for that entire
So
game.
that's the level of, and they beat us
Yes.
like 30 or 40.
Yes.
So
Yes, because that one was entertaining. At least I was like, hey, how long can we not score, right? This game was so frustrating to watch because you see that there's kind of some talent there, right? It's just horribly mismanaged. Like you saw them make plays, you saw them put the bat on the ball. The pitching was bad, but for the first little bit, it wasn't that bad. Then you get into a little bit of trouble. Maybe you can recover because the bats are so good. But you do dumb things. And again, I don't like to use the Q word, but buddy, it looks a lot like that right now.
I mean, you've been swept in 4 of 7 weekend series now. It's hard to
What do you
make
say?
it counterfactual to that, honestly.
Yeah, what do you say to that? Like, again, it felt this way with the women's golf team, not to like bring up something we already talked about, but like if you lose but the other team is better, right? Like what happened on Saturday for the women's golf team? Like they outscored the nearest competitor, Iowa State, they outshot them by 10 strokes. They outshot you by like 15. It's not like you played bad. Sometimes the other team just plays really well. And TCU was hitting the ball well, but like those little things just add up, right? You get picked off at second. You don't tag up. That's 3 runs, right? You can kind of put 3 runs on the board there. If Trey Broussard is on second and he tags up to get the third, that second pop fly, you send him. If you get thrown out at home on a sac fly, I'm okay with that. I am, right? You hit that pop fly, they get you at home, you're out first inning, take the risk. I can live with that. What I can't live with is not moving him at all, despite your batters doing the right thing and getting the ball on the right side of the field. I'm willing to test the right fielder's arm with Trey Broussard. But instead, no one's yelling at Trey Broussard to get back. Again, if he gets thrown out at home trying to tag up in the first inning, shit, what are you going to do?
Yeah,
so
worthwhile
That
risk.
guy's on scholarship too. Worth the risk. Not sending him at all? What are we doing? Like, what are you doing there?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I said last week. U of H, I think, has a 0% chance of doing this, but in my opinion, they should just let Todd Whitting go now as an act of mercy. You're 5 games out of qualifying for the Big 12 championships. Todd Whitting's contract expires after the season. Nobody's under any illusion how this is going to end. You know?
Yeah, it's just, I'm not saying Coach Whitting has forgotten more about baseball than I'll ever know.
Yeah,
right.
Me too.
I can fully admit that, but I know that wasn't good. I played high school baseball. Like I know a little bit about baseball. I've watched it my entire life. I may not know that, but I do know that what I saw on Sunday is bad baseball. Like I can understand getting beat. This isn't about wins and losses. It's like it is, right? But like if you're just getting beat 4-3 and it's like, okay, like I can 14-2, 11-0 at the end of the 4th, and you left 2 runs out on the field, but with stupid base running, it's fundamental. You're not doing the small things right. Like if you're doing the small things right, okay, cool. I can get behind that a little bit. Or if it's my players are making bonehead plays and yes, it's down to coaching a little bit, but at some point they got to play the game. Like maybe that's what happened, but if it happens multiple times, that's on coaching. That's on coaching.
Yeah, I remember when I watched our season end last year to the same TCU team in the Big 12 championships. It wasn't just that TCU,
which I was there for.
TCU, it wasn't just that TCU beat you, is that you were so fundamentally bad in that game. That's what it comes back to. It's not just that, hey, we got good coaches, but we just don't have the resource in this conference to get the best talent. Like, okay, like maybe I could understand that, but it's a combination of that and also the baseball itself looking pretty bad. And it's looked mostly pretty bad for over half a decade now.
Yeah.
Almost a decade.
Yeah. And, to bring up the other bat and ball sport, at least
let's do. I have nothing else to say about baseball, so jump into it, man.
Yeah, or just real quick on baseball, they did lose tonight in Nacogdoches to SFA.
1-3 now against the Southland this year.
Yeah, man, good look. That's a real good look for the Cougs. But jumping in just kind of the softball, same kind of deal as baseball. The difference is it's a new coaching staff, right? And you can kind of see what they're trying to do. You can see that they're testing a lot of players this year to see who sticks. You have some bright spots that probably aren't going to be Cougs next year if I had to bet. But I don't want to already count that before it happens. But you can see what that coaching staff is at least trying to do, and you just do not have that with baseball. That's the big difference to me. And again, there's a difference between getting beat and not looking good. I think there are times where softball looks good, right? And at least
you've hit well. That's the thing. You've hit pretty well this year.
Yeah, in every game. Like, it's very rare that you don't hit well. Like, I can see that they're at least moving forward, and I can appreciate that. While it's been ugly and it hasn't made it easy to podcast, I can see that they're moving forward from at least kind of where they were last year. Softball very much feels like the first year of the Willie Fritz football team, where the record isn't good. You see a lot of bad, but you also go, okay, I get it. I get what we're trying to do. We may not have the horses to do it, but I can get there.
Yeah, tennis's first year the Cat was here.
Yeah.
You know, like that was just like, hey, you're digging out a big hole here. Like it's gonna probably take multiple years to get this thing looking good. I mean, we'll say the one positive from this weekend, Maddie Hartley hit her 20th home run of the season, putting her only behind program legend Haley Outen for most single season home runs. She had 22, I believe, in 2012. Arizona also did a really nice gesture. On their senior day, they allowed U of H's seniors to be honored with them because U of H's senior day got rained out. Supposed to be, I think, in a midweeker against Sam Houston, but 32 runs allowed in 15 innings of softball.
It's tough.
It's pretty tough. It's an astronomically high number. And that was your season in a nutshell. You had some definite offensive positives, but you're going to be massively handicapped in the sport if your pitching is this liable to give up a ton of runs, which this pitching staff is unfortunately pretty liable to do.
Really good at doing.
Yeah. And that's the season. U of H's off week for conference play fell in this one. You finished dead last in the conference, so you're well outside of qualifying for the conference championships next month. I mean, big picture, like you kind of mentioned, Bobby, still some positives because I would say the offense probably outperformed our preseason expectations. You have clear examples of hitters improving under this coaching staff's tutelage, but say it for not the first time, if you have any hopes of being better than dead last this conference, this probably needs to be an entirely new or almost entirely new pitching staff in 2027. But year one of what we expect to be a major rebuild, worth being a little circumspect, worth looking at the bigger picture. It still was kind of shocking how poor the pitching was this season. Even taking into account that you're in a better softball conference now than you've ever been, probably the worst pitching in almost 30 years of program history. And anytime that happens, there's going to need to be corresponding changes there. The good news is that it's not as if the staff brought in a bunch of new pitchers and you got these numbers. All but one pitcher saw action this season was someone who was recruited by the last staff, but you could also say the staff hasn't yet proven they can identify and bring in quality arms to U of H. That remains an unanswered question and obviously a vitally important one. If you want to ever not be the worst team in Big 12 softball, which unfortunately the Cougs were now for the third year running.
Yeah, I think you absolutely have to take a look at some new pitchers. And the staff, I think you could say, hasn't shown they've been able to identify pitching talent. I do think they kind of got a late start.
For sure. And that's not saying they can't. It's just that they haven't yet here.
Yeah. I think for me, the biggest, I get a lot of basketball vibes with this, women's basketball vibes with this in terms of just bringing in some people and just seeing what or keeping a lot of the roster the same and seeing what they can do before you start making wholesale changes. So we will, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens this offseason with some of those wholesale changes happening.
No doubt. All right, Bobby, that's all the Cougar sports this week. Take us home.
Perfect. Well, that is it for this week's episode of the Scott and Holman podcast. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. It's been a really fun year. Not that it's completely over yet. We got a couple of more weeks of baseball and some track and field to talk, but really have enjoyed it so far. this season. Looking forward to the last month of Cougar sports before we get to do some fun off-season content. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media at SH Podcast. On Twitter, you can find us on Blue Sky at podcast.bsky.social. If you want to email us, you can email us as well, shpodcast@gmail.com. Or if you want to really be involved in some of the off-season stuff and hear some of our premium content, you can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/SH Podcast. All of that is SH Podcast, SHPAWDCAST. Sam, you got to treat this like it's somebody's first time listening. And what do we always say, buddy?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!